All right, thank you so much for sticking with us. We continue with this conversation, and as I mentioned earlier, with the Honorable Wilson Sossion in studio. Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa, for being here, and to at the center with Chris Owalla. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks, and of course, joining us now is Gibson Gisore, political analyst. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Bwana Gisore, before we took that break, we were talking about the fuel subsidy. And the conversation is it about vocabulary or policy? Tell me about it. What do you think about it?
Thank you so much, Ram, for inviting me for this show. For me, I think where I come from is really what is in a name, because the whole aspect should be what is the essence of this particular, whether it's a stabilization fund, whether it's actually an incentive. They might even call it some other name which they might want to come up with. Because I can relate this to the housing fund, where we first were talking about, the regime was talking about it's not a tax, then later it ended up being a tax. So, I mean, let's just call it what it is. So what I'm interested in really is to see that this regime, that is the Kenya Kwanza regime, is coming to terms to realize that the cost of living is really high and they need to do something. And at least they just don't want to come out clearly and say, we want to help you Kenyans. I don't know why they are shy of saying that we want to stabilize the fuel prices, because that's one major thing which is really causing a lot of pain to Kenyans. Every time you go to the pump to fuel, you actually feel the pain of carrying the government in your pocket. So if we are going to do this, they need to do it right. They need to just as well come out and say that we are doing 1, 2, 3 for the same. But the story of telling us, oh, it's not a tax, or it's not a stabilization fund, does not augur well. They need to have proper communication channels, and then they process Kenyans in a very clear way. I don't see anything wrong for them saying we are going to do this for purposes of trying to cushion Kenyans.
All right. Before we took that break, Honorable Sossion mentioned something, and I would like to put it out there also. That at the back page of the Daily Nation mentioned it. Food prices expected to drop as harvesting starts. That is the headline there. Food prices expected to drop as harvesting starts. Well, food prices and items have actually started to drop after supplies of fresh harvests hit the market in a welcome relief for Kenyans who have struggled and have been struggling to afford the cost of sugar, fuel, electricity, and transport. According to the Central Bank of Kenya's July 2023 Agriculture Sector Survey, which tracked the prices of agricultural commodities in selected markets and farms last month, it shows that a downward trend is there in prices in July. If you look at the prices of different commodities, actually the survey findings closely mirror data published by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics a fortnight ago, which showed inflation had eased to 7.3% in July, down from 7.9% in June. So it was the lowest year-on-year inflation since May last year, which it stood at 7.1%, largely driven by low food prices. Now, between June and July, if you look at the numbers, the prices of Irish potatoes dropped in the fastest rate of 12.2%, with a kilogram selling for 89 shillings and 7 cents in July, down from 101 shilling 41 cents in the previous months. So, Mr. Chris, if you look at the numbers don't lie.
Ram, the reduction, first you know that diets not live on bread alone.
Yes.
The life is not only revolving around maize. But there are other issues. The economy is not only on food.
Yeah.
There are other things that come with it.
But doesn't food have an effect?
Food has a big effect because 70 to 80% of what we earn goes to food. That's the reality. But for how long will it be there? That's the question we need to ask. Ordinarily, at harvesting time, the prices must go down. It's not only on this year alone. It's something that any year people harvest. But again, you look at the trend. To what extent is it reducing? I was just trying to look at even in my village. See, it's stuck at 150. The 2 kilograms of gorogoro is still stuck at 150, stuck at 130. Ordinarily, it goes beyond 100 shillings, even in my village. So it's not something to celebrate, because there are other things that tie the people. The reality is that we are like George Floyd's, where the government is on your neck, because all other taxes, for example, for the first time, people who are going to universities are fundraising all over. People might not have anything in their pockets to make
the person at the village there.
Yes,
doesn't that make someone say?
Make them smile, but what do we do to make it remains there or comes lower, further lower?
Are you saying it might go higher?
It might go higher. That's the truth.
100%.
I think I've never come across a pessimistic person like my good brother here, Chris Owalla, who wants to see everything is failing even when it's improving. You still want to predict gloom and doom. But I think we are not strangers in Kenya, and these figures don't lie. The data from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics on 3 months consistent reduction of inflation is not a lie. And you see, when you talk of inflation, you're not only talking about the agricultural products, prices coming down. It's across board. The cost of living, looking at the price indices. Central Bank of Kenya has given another round of convincing data, in fact, up to the prices of various commodities that everybody uses. When Kenya Kwanza said, going to the streets and putting on sufurias is not going to reduce the cost of living, but rather let farmers go to the farms and farmers be supported. I think the naysayers were very negative about it. Even if you put sufurias in the street for 1 full year, food originates from the farms. And right from day one, when the president was sworn in on 13th of September, he declared a price reduction of fertilizers to 3,500, and registration of farmers is targeted distribution of fertilizers, which was done. We are beginning to see the impact. And in fact, you drive across the country with the plenty of rains that we've had, the farmers have worked very hard. And in fact, it's the greatest incentive. And it's what many governments do. You incentivize the farmers in terms of farm inputs to secure food security. When there is national food security, then the cost of living is reduced. And this is the impact we are seeing. And it's right across the country. And for the next season, the next strategic intervention measures is reducing further the fertilizers to 2,500. And the manufacture of agrochemicals and other farm inputs has been given tax waiver for raw materials. That means it will be available to farmers in the moving forward at lowest prices. That means farmers will be more incentivized to reduce inputs, both agrochemical and fertilizers. And of course, we've seen the area of seeds. We've seen the BT cotton farmers in Busia, and all these will spread to all manner of crops, including even sugar. The sugar that is very scarce in the country is an area that is set for serious revival. So when you look at all this, surely any normal Kenyan who is educated will definitely appreciate that these are straight, clear, measurable intervention measures to bring down the cost of living and to avail also disposable income to ordinary Kenyans like the farmers. When farmers sell their goods, they get the money. And it's talked of other aspects like education. Of course, students are going to universities. There are other straight intervention measures to deal with universities in terms of the funding model that will see the poorest household get substantial scholarship and a balance of loan that is going to clear 100% the fee payment. So nobody should really talk about it. Those who will be able to pay from their household income are those who will choose to do so.
Right.
And that's an area that is also handled. And look at the cost of running schools, school feeding programs, feeding all our 20 million learners in a day across the country by schools. With the previous escalated cost, the handshake come as a new regime that really was definitely blind. How do you administer a country where the price of fertilizers is at 7,000, food is becoming available to schools, it's difficult to run schools, and a bag of maize was almost going at almost 7,000 to feed students in school. In fact, schools were almost shutting down or doing away with school feeding program. Now this is going to be affordable. Now, and it's going to be, and to run schools, the cost of running schools moving forward in terms of feeding of students and procuring food products to feed students in school, it will come down. So generally, within a period of 1 year, Kenya Kwanza administration has tackled the most challenging aspect of the cost of living. This one of fuel, it remains the responsibility of government to continue stabilizing using every other means. But subsidy has not become an option. IPRA has engaged in certain intervention measures to bring it down. So don't begin celebrating that Kenya Kwanza is going the route of subsidy.
Let me give
we are not going the route of subsidy.
Right of reply.
We will avoid it. And what government has done over the last, through direct government to government supply of fuel, in fact, it could have been worse. And if you look at the prices of fuel across the region in Tanzania and Uganda, it's far much higher than Kenya. So the intervention by Kenya Kwanza to procure fuel to the country from government to government has actually saved the country. It could have been worse. So what used to happen during
maybe the next
handshake regime,
maybe the next
handshake regime,
2 or 3 months,
far much better. We are doing
maybe the next 2 or 3 months we'll be able to see how it has affected the education sector now that you are positive about it.
No, you can see it even now.
I think Mheshimiwa is a politician.
I'm not a politician, I'm a realist.
And you're saying he's a pessimist.
I'm a realist.
He's a politician.
And politicians are realists.
Politics is an art of lying, so that you have the masses with you. But the reality is that he might name me as a pessimistic person, but the reality is that this was a coincidence. The reduction in price. It's a coincidence. It's not the act. It's not the art of the Kenya Kwanza government. I don't think.
Why is it not the art? Can you prove?
What makes it a coincidence?
In my village, I didn't see them distribute fertilizer. So if they take pride of what they didn't invest in, then to me that's not the right thing.
We are relying on data of Kenya National Bureau of Statistics (CBK), but we are not relying on where you stay.
You're saying you've not seen
I've not seen them distribute fertilizer in my village.
But
then they are saying,
where did these numbers come from?
When my mother harvests, then they take pride of it. To me, that's where the disconnect is, Rama. Because you see, you take credit on where you have put your time, put your resources. But if Kenyans are on their own, the reality is, smallholder farmers are toiling day and night. If by a coincidence they get some product, the government cannot say, this is our contribution. To me, that's wrong. That's a lie that needs to be demystified.
I guess I should come in. I guess I should come in because the two having.
Yes, Gibson. I'll come back to you. Yes, Gibson.
Let me start from where he has left.
Yes.
I equally have not seen any fertilizer in my own village, and my people are not talking about having received any fertilizer. Actually, for the first time, there was some rumor, I think a week or two back, is when fertilizer was rumored to have come to the larger Kisii region, which is also another farming agricultural place. So that, of course, I mean, Chris is right that this regime seems to be taking advantage of other things which people have really worked for to take credit. But then, on the onset, they understand what needs to be done. And we need to congratulate them on that. For Mheshimiwa, I think I liked him better when he was a NUT. When he was with NUT, not the Mheshimiwa we are seeing, because I used to have a lot of faith in him. When he used to speak for teachers,
yes. That was the best.
I could trust that something would come through. Because my mom was a teacher, so every time I could see somebody fighting for my mom. Yes. So that was I had a lot of faith. But the politician now, I think, is somewhere in between. So what needs to be done to bring down the cost of living? Because we need to really face serious facts here as a country. The Kenya Kwanza government seems to know, but it's handling these things in a very cosmetic way. Why are they not going to head on to deal with the real challenges? Because if you want to bring the cost of living down, you've got to start dealing with issues like irrigation. Mm-hmm. They say they're doing 100 dams, which is the right thing, but we have not seen any so far, which has come on. It's a year into. And then I think there is the perception of trying to cry about the handshake, which is long lost because that's way back. We need to start seeing the agenda, which is building dams. Once we start doing irrigation, then we actually move from the old era of farming, because the kind of farming we are doing is the one somebody like waiting for the rain and sunshine is what used to be done ages ago. Now things have changed. We need to do irrigation so that we have a proper stabilization of food prices. Once that is covered, we will not be crying around about having a stabilization fund or not having a stabilization fund for.
All right. Now,
any serious government, Ram, just a minute.
Yes.
Any serious government will want to deal with manufacturing. If they were serious about manufacturing, we could be seeing all the 15 or so sugar millers up and running. Okay. Right now, Western and Luo Nyanza sugar farmers are not farming sugarcane, but we are talking about importing sugar because it's an easier way. If we were to deal with these things head on, we could not be talking about the cost of living.
I would like to move to yet another thing, because this cannot be discussed in conclusion today. You have something to say? I give you a minute before
they've had all their space trying to push the government left, right, and center, and I think I have a right of reply.
Yes, you have a right of reply. Yes.
Right of reply. One, my brothers here don't understand the plan of Kenya Kwanza, the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, and they don't seem to be seeing the significant results. And it doesn't mean that the fact that Kenya Kwanza was elected, the economy was a switch on, switch off affair, that things begin working right all of a sudden. There are a lot of realistic things that needed to be done. The first budget that directly addresses the flagship programs and projects of Kenya Kwanza has just been passed. It's the Finance Act, you know. It was okayed by the courts the other day. That is going to focus on the various flagship programs. So for the last 1 year, Kenya Kwanza has been working within possible means to try and deliver quite a number of areas. And you see, the agro-revolution agenda by Kenya Kwanza is real. There will be irrigation in this country. Those programs are underway. It will be there.
But
this country,
time will tell.
No, just allow me. Give me space.
I would like us to move. I'm adding you 30 more seconds.
Yes, because he has touched other aspects of agriculture, including irrigation. We've talked of seeds, fertilizers, and of course, reviving sectors that died, like the factories that are not functioning. If there are no canes, you can't expect factories to function. And that really is serious to the sugarcane farmers in Kenya. And the government is on its way to ensure that all this is revived and sugarcane farmers are back to production and are benefiting. But of course, you look at the wider, big agenda, the main flagship programs of Kenya Kwanza, agricultural revolution is coming. We've already begun seeing, data is here, it doesn't lie. There's already reduced prices and availability of food. Other aspects, the MSMEs, because you've said you're in business, you've seen the Hustler Fund with activities with membership of over 20 million and so much activities borrowing up to 30 billion and repayment of over 20 billion. It's working. The digital revolution, because this is one country that is leading in terms of digital transactions and operation, is what enables business, is what makes the digital infrastructure alone is a major form of infrastructure that is underway. The housing is on course. Yes, you have said what is being levied. The argument was whether it was a tax or not, but it's a levy. It is it's being implemented. So we are very sure. And I said one time, in 20 years' time, with the revolution of settlement through housing, somebody will give President William Ruto a Nobel Prize for bringing some revolution in housing. Because look at it. Countries like Europe, if you look at the Green Revolution in Germany, it was also with organized settlement. And you look at many other countries, Singapore, and it is time in this country. And this housing program will be devolved to all the constituencies in this country. And then there is UHC, and we have done a lot of work in education. In 1 year, empirically, there are clear, palpable deliverables that even a blind man can touch.
You've had your right of reply.
What Gibson was saying, and I agree with him, when you are not person, Mheshimiwa was very... I was dear to my heart.
And I would say,
these are real.
I have not changed my character. I am still a unionist to the core, and I would always speak the truth.
The government is a way of
this truth that I'm speaking now does not please you. And I have no apologies. If the truth I'm speaking now does not please you. Because I always speak, I'm constant. No, I speak the truth through and through.
All right. Yes, the people.
The truth I used to speak then and the truth I'm speaking now is the same truth. It only the truth of the moment does not please you. So if it doesn't please you, I have no apologies to make. I'm really sorry.
You have a reply to the Mheshimiwa?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Go ahead. It's free. Yeah.
I think Mheshimiwa is right that they...
And will you allow me also to reply?
The Kenya
no, then you're biased.
Mheshimiwa, I'm supporting you here. I'm supporting you because some of the things, and my opening statement was like they're trying to do some right things, but the way they are going about it is very cosmetic. We need to see something tangible, something real.
All right.
For example, if you are talking about the fertilizer subsidies and you want to reduce the cost of sugar, not only maize, because we have seen only maize being targeted, we could start by waiving all the debts which the sugar factories have and giving fertilizers to those farmers. Because you talk, there's no cane. We need to put fertilizer to the farmers so that they grow cane. And then they be paid their monies. So that could have been a very good start. So if these things were being done concurrently, not in a piecemeal, then we could be talking about a regime which is really conscious of trying to bring down some of these costs.
All right.
Costs down.
Yeah,
the issue of the fuel is something which I think which is also being handled in a very cosmetic way.
Yes.
The issue of government has turned out to be a scandal because we were told once the government scale was to be affected, the prices were to come down significantly to like 100. Now instead they are going up. So if we could be talking about, because the stabilization fund, the much it reduces is by a shilling or two, it never goes beyond 5. But when it increased, we moved from around 150, now we are doing almost close to 200. Actually, if you go people, it's past 200. So how are we bringing this down? Because we need to see significant changes when it comes down so that it actually touches the Kenyan to a level that it can be able to. But if you reduce a shilling or two, you cannot say, oh, we cannot start celebrating that we have really won the war.
Allow me to move to Chris. Let me hear from Chris.
Can I just have a rebuttal here?
Yes.
I think when you address agriculture, there's a climate change effect. And when you say you start and end with fertilizer, then you are not addressing the farming the way you're supposed to address. We need to invest in smallholder farmers. This is what drives globally. If you want to fight food price issues, food sovereignty, it rests with the small-scale farmers. Make sure that you have small irrigation scheme that can spread, because we can't say that rains has happened by accident. We have got rains now by accident. If we don't invest in water for these farmers to get rains, to get water to make sure that their agriculture is sustained, make sure that you have got agriculture extension officers. The reality is, even this agriculture is a devolved function. Why is the national government not releasing money to counties to do agriculture the way they're supposed to do? Why are they still hanging on resources which are meant for counties, and they're pretending to be facilitating devolution?
Now, we shall be able to tackle that after this break. And when we'll be back, we shall just watch a clip filed by our newsroom. Remember, we're now 10 years down the line concerning devolution. 10 years of devolution. How far are we? You've mentioned the counties. You've mentioned county funding. Honorable Sossion also mentioned about how counties are working. On the front page of the People Daily, governors owe supplies 160 billion shilling. When will they pay? That is a question. As county bosses meet in Eldoret for the devolution conference, the elephant in the room will be how they owe and when they plan to settle old debts. That is a conversation we'll be having after this break. How are our counties doing? Let's talk about 10 years of devolution. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break and then we'll be back in a bit. Keep it KBC. All right, we continue with this morning show, and I want us to talk about matters concerning devolution. Before we took that break, we were talking about matters concerning fuel subsidy and its effects. Now, I'd like you to take a look at this picture, and to my guests also, maybe you can get a glimpse of what... Now, this is the Standard newspaper, and there is a caricature on this particular paper. I'd like you guys to just tell me what you think about this particular image here. And my cameraman here, Mogaka, you can just come in closer to that particular. Yes, that's it. Now you can see, now this is a man holding a pan, and on that particular pan written policies. On the face, fuel subsidy. Tell me what you think about this and your understanding. How would you interpret this particular caricature, Honorable Sossion?
Now, that's creation of the media. That is one person a cartoonist who is trying to influence, right? You know, I've been in the media space. I've been in the media space for a long time. And that is what you call an egg on face, isn't it? That is the impression. And in fact, you are taking us back to the cost of living.
All right.
Do you know the behavior of the dollar globally currently? The behavior of the dollar currently could have raised the prices of fuel in Kenya to levels that are unsustainable if it were not for the intervention measures that Kenya Kwanza government has put in place. One, government to procurement has maintained it at an all-time manageable low.
Okay.
And look at the dollar. The dollar is almost at 150 shillings. And the effect of the dollar, we must appreciate, for any goods that are being imported will be very difficult, very expensive and difficult to manage. That is one.
We're
Two,
trying to understand this particular
the action by IBRA.
Yes.
No, that cartoon is very mischievous and is part of the wider game of media to bastardize Kenya Kwanza.
Right.
That is the image of the president. Yes, and you know, definitely I don't agree with that. And that is one person. It doesn't mean it is empirical view of everyone.
All right.
And then when it comes, we've talked about the dollar effect. Allow me.
Yes.
And of course, delay in government remittance of county funds.
Transfers.
County transfer funds were not remitted by handshake regime and Azimio government. But Kenya Kwanza government has remitted to the last coin. So the issue of non-servicing of pending bills should now not arise. That was a different government for this government. But then when you talk of agriculture, you're talking about cane farming. There's been deliberate intervention in coffee sector, up to even marketing. Now the farmers can market their coffee. And all the cartels and brokers have been removed. Tea has been addressed. Milk is being addressed. The next that will be addressed is cane farming. And Kenya Kwanza government will move step by step, sector by sector, from coffee, tea, milk, and it is work in progress. All we need is deep understanding and support, particularly by eminent people who are well educated like you. I don't expect you to argue.
All right. Let me come to you. Remember, I'm giving it 30 seconds each.
Optimistic Kenyans want to see things.
Yes.
I think from my understanding, I think the cartoon or whichever name caricature that Mheshimiwa is describing is speaking the truth. It's giving us where we are and what people are seeing. You know, when you attend, you might not see your back. Many times it's difficult to see your back, but somebody can see it for you.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Briefly.
I think for me is that caricature actually depicts the feeling of Kenyans because government should be very simple and clear to the point. When they start telling us the stabilization fund, it's not an incentive, then people are left confused. So whoever came up with that caricature, I think, must have interpreted the feeling of Kenyans. Whether true or not true, it's left for the jury to judge. But you know where you stand.
All right.
When you go to the fuel pump station.
But Honorable Sossion believes that the one who drew it was being cheeky.
Yeah, extremely mischievous. Because we are trying to display an ache on the face of the president.
On the face.
And I'm seeing somewhere in social media, somebody saying the government of Kenya is paying 22,000 shillings per child in high school. What is the big issue when government pays 7 shillings per liter for fuel? So if government is paying for you, what is the contestation?
I think there's a big difference between education and fuel.
It is debatable.
It is all payment from the exchequer.
It is debatable.
But measures to mitigate.
We're moving on, and I'm dropping that.
I don't think there's sincerity from the argument.
We are out of order.
The government is not paying.
No, your panelists are out of order.
The government is not paying.
But we are talking about facts, right?
It's actually a tax which is used to stabilize.
That's your money.
It's not
That's your money.
That's your money. It's not the government paying for it. The government has no money.
Let's move forward. And
government collects
my producer,
and paying.
Fadili.
Government collects and pays.
Yes, gentlemen. We are dropping that conversation.
No, I'm not misleading.
We are dropping that conversation, and I want us to take a look at this particular clip. This is the devolution journey of the country. 10 years of devolution.
The inception of devolution a decade ago saw 14 functions move from the national government to the county level, as articulated in 4th schedule of the Constitution. This was aimed at ensuring services were closer to the people and open development in areas that had previously suffered resource marginalization.
We have really made progress, and the focus now should be on where next for devolution.
So it's an opportunity to review, it's an opportunity to critique what devolution has been able to achieve and what it has not been able to achieve, and now setting the pace for the next 10 years on what devolution should do.
Among the functions distributed to the county governments were county health services, agriculture, cultural activities, public entertainment and amenities, county transport, animal control and welfare, trade development and regulations, county planning and development, pre-primary education, village polytechnics, county public works, control of drugs and pornography, environmental conservation on specific national government policies, and coordination and participation of communities in governance.
What we are doing as a government is doubling our efforts in revenue collection, and we are doing that by closing all the loopholes.
The 14 functions, as spelled out in the Constitution, have so far been funded to a tune of 3.6 trillion shillings. And this begs the question, have the county governments effectively absorbed the funds? Opinion remains divided.
Still fighting with the national government on the rollout of the other devolved functions. There are functions worth about 275 billion, which are still lying in the national government. This year, the counties have been given about 385 billion. So with the 275 billion plus 385, that will be about 600 billion going to the counties, which will do a lot of things that will be done in our counties. So we expect the government to come forward with a plan of rollout of the remaining functions that are supposed to be taken to the county governments.
Well, proponents of devolution argue that the transfer of functions has led to an improvement of service delivery. Others have faulted county bosses for not always factoring in projects of interest to the electorate. The point of departure mainly touching on the implementation of the county health services, transport, agriculture, betting and liquor regulations.
These instructions are so clear. They must work with counties, especially on shared responsibility, like, for example, in agriculture, in health, in water. We must work together because we can't work in silos. National government at that level and ourselves at this level.
The national government has always been at crossroads with counties over the transfer of resources commensurate with the functions allocated, as well as the personnel to ensure efficiency. A case in point being the cause by some healthcare unions for some of the functions to be transferred back to the national government, including employment of healthcare workers.
Sometimes the unions of healthcare professionals would not understand that, and they keep trying to claw back the health function back to the national government. And I think it's about time that we had a sitting and understand the reason why this was devolved in the first place.
In the 2023 Division of Revenue Bill that President William Ruto sent it to in April, the counties received 385 billion shillings as an equitable share of revenue, up from the 370 billion shillings. This year's devolution conference will no doubt reawaken the debate as the government seeks to fully implement the devolution as envisaged by the drafters of the Constitution and endorsed by Kenyans in the 2010 referendum.
Yes, that is a report filed by our news team, courtesy of the news desk. 10 years. This year's devolution conference is the 10th since the country adopted the new constitution. 10 years of devolution. Where are we? We are talking about so many things happening in the country. Politics, fuel subsidy is what we were discussing. That and much more. But as a country, have we hit a few marks or have we missed them? Are there things that we can be proud of? And are there things that we've managed to achieve within the past 10 years? Remember, we shall be having a live coverage of that particular devolution conference that is taking place in Uasin Gishu County. But still, my guest today, let me start with you, Chris, concerning this. Are you proud of where we are as a country 10 years down the line?
That's a difficult question, Ram, because if you look at what devolution was to achieve, we are not yet there. We if you look at the resources that have been devolved vis-a-vis what we are seeing, it's a big contradiction. And some of this contradiction is because the national government in some cases are still stuck on some functions that ought to have been fully devolved. I remember, I think some 8 months back, His Excellency the President instructed the Intergovernmental Technical Coordination Committee to make sure that all those functions that are not yet devolved be unbundled, and so that it's clear that those resources can go to the counties. There could be a goodwill from the President to make sure that there are resources goes to where they are. But looking at the devolution the way it's supposed to be, I think we are in the reds. If you see resources vis-a-vis, and if, for example, if you look at healthcare, where you are saying that a lot of resources, money is supposed to go to recruit doctors, to recruit health, to nurses and the rest. If you look at how the employment is being done, employment is not being done to improve service delivery, but employment is being done for political expediencies, where I realize that somebody just decide to hire people who don't add value because they are politically correct, but the area where you're supposed to hire, for example, we are talking about the extension workers here. Agriculture is fully devolved, but I'm yet to see a county in this Republic of Kenya, maybe if Sossion and my friend here, Gibson, might have seen from their counties, that have hired the so-called extension workers. And this is a purely a devolved function. At the transitional level time, you realize that there were donations by other donors to support agriculture. And there were motorbikes that were bought to enable the extension workers deliver services. Those motorbikes are now being personalized because the agricultural officers that are now using them for their own. And if they fuel it, they repair, and they go and service farmer at the farmer's cost. So it beats the logic. But if you look at also where we had a disconnect, the transitional authority didn't do its work well. That's where we also missed the issues of how do we transfer resources and power and function to the country. And I think this convention, we don't need to have is 10 years of devolution. And I want to share that this conference is the 8th conference, 10 years after devolution.
Yes.
But it's the 8th conference.
Yes.
Looking at I happen to sit in a civil society devolution working group at national level. And we have been looking at this. The way budget is being done at county level, a lot of the governors don't apply money where the people to solve people's felt needs. If you're looking at the issue of public participation, if you look at Article 174, there is clear that people's to decide on how they are ruled, bringing government closer to the people. Meaning that if our problems is water, the government, county government, we engage so that we get water. There are many areas in this country that we are still sharing water with the animals. The water availability is still a problem. But the bigger picture is, we see a lot of growers, a lot of big cars. So devolution, if you ask anybody in your village, what is the impact of devolution? They say you, county staff are the one enjoying devolution. And if you look at it, we are not saying that it's bad to get to enjoy. In county staffs, county government are the kings now in the villages. They extort, they get money from you, they eat that money to the extent that people have given up also in issue of public participation. When you go to public participation this year, you raise your issues, they're not budgeted for. Next year, you raise them, they're not budgeted for. So there's apathy. People are saying, okay, all right, this devolution was not meant to serve us, but serve the few selected individuals. Right. Even employment. Okay. It's certain families, certain people that keep on being recycled in these positions.
Now, yes, we are still talking about how we feel 10 years down the line, but it's important, still concerning what you've said, it's important to note that some counties are working with various partners. Yes. As we speak. Yes. And this is for them to drive development projects, for example, entrenching value addition in agriculture. Some are directly engaging with donors to raise funds for critical projects. 10 years down the line, that is still something that we can be proud of. Even Tarakaniti County, for example. it had, and it's featured even in our dailies, a medical drone program. They were having that program, delivering medical supplies through drone technology, which is one of the approaches the county government of Tharaka Nithi is actively pursuing. So what do you mean? When you mention such things like, health workers, and isn't this a step in the right direction?
There are counties that have made good use of devolution.
There are counties that
have made good use of devolution. Like Kakamega, if you look at healthcare, they have tried. If you look at West Pokot, for the first time, they were marginalized. They have improved.
Right,
if you look at Wajir, we look at Garissa. But if you look at the main counties that we thought will be a game changer, they have fallen.
Like which county?
Kisumu, Siaya, they have fallen. Mombasa, they have fallen. That's the reality.
Honorable Sossion.
I think we need a professionally done audit of devolution 10 years down the line.
Okay.
And we need this to be done empirically so that we are able to guide the next discourse and understand rather than talking from guesswork. But from the little data that we have, is agreed. The intention of devolution really was the best. It was the best product of the constitutional making process. And how I wish devolution existed from 1963. So that the centric nature of controlling resources and development from the center could have been reduced. There is still competing interest between the central and devolved units.
Yes.
And since at the center there was too much corruption, devolution has also devolved a great form of corruption. Now, when you analyze critically in terms of two things, driving development and expenditure in development areas, that is creation of capital, infrastructure, and recurrent, many counties are consuming most of their resources on salaries. So really, there is no room for development. Many counties cannot generate own revenue, because counties are supposed to generate own revenue, develop partnership with other investors and donors and supporters. That is the freedom they have. Some lack capacity to do that. They spend what comes from national government, and that is it. And when you look at the key flagship programs like health, has health done better under devolution than it was in the central government? Yes.
They don't
why are health workers so restless? Doctors and nurses, they feel they should be managed from the center. So what was supposed to be devolved? Is it the infrastructure and the management of hospital? How was the human resource supposed to be managed? That
counties want health to be brought back to the national government.
Then, yes, medics are agitating for a health service commission that manages only human resources and are managed nationally, so that then the other resources and aspects are managed at the counties, which to me makes a lot of sense. That's why we argued teachers should be managed nationally under TSC, and we succeeded. So it's just one and the same thing, because it's too heavy for county government to manage the human resource aspect of its staff and also manage the delivery of services and our facilities. Some governors are lost about it. They can't even manage the ECD as just a small function that is given to them. So there are a lot of teething challenges. What really was supposed to be devolved? Is it everything or certain aspects of that center? So that is co-shared with national government. Yeah, if you're talking about a neurosurgeon being deployed to Siaya County government or Kisii County government, a neurosurgeon to be managed by MCAs and governance structure, that is, surely these are some of the things. What was supposed to be, through a proper audit, we should be able to distill and know what functions are supposed to still reside at the national government and what are supposed to be devolved to the county government. Now, then let's come to the aspect of deliverables. We should see deliverables in agriculture. We should see deliverables in health, and not just imaginations, not just empty rhetoric, but real deliverables. That is why there's the aspect of public participation for all programs at the counties. Then the question is, are these public participation programs mere public relations for spending and satisfying the budget allocation for public participation, or the actual public participation that deliver results? Those are things we need to check. And then very lastly, two things that I see in devolution. There is a very weak oversight framework on devolution. The Senate is supposed to oversight. The senators are supposed to oversight devolution in their respective counties. Are they doing it? Do they have the infrastructure to do it? The county assembly, the parliament of every county, is supposed to oversight. Are they oversighting, or they've been absorbed into compromise situations by governors? Are they independent? Are the assemblies really independent? And do they have teeth to bite, even as they process and approve the budgets? Do they have power and capacity to oversight? Right. So we need to check these two institutions, right, the Senate and the assemblies, to structurally and effectively oversight the operations of the county government. Right. Then this animal that has been created called pending bills, if it is at 160 billion, and right now all pending funds at the national government have been dispersed to the counties, and still this 160 billion still exists, that tells us that there is something that is not right with the fiscal management and prudency at the county. If we have 160 billion of pending bills, this is actually sabotaging the economy. Now, once all payments have been, once all remittances from the central government has been affected, because I believe the pending bills are charged against the remittances that are expected from the exchequer. And if the exchequer has paid promptly to the last cent all the monies, why should we still have the pending bills? And this is where the Comptroller of Budget and the Auditor General should rein on the county governments to ensure that all the pending bills are cleared, because this is destroying the economy, it is destroying businesses.
Now, remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about 10 years of devolution. 10 years of devolution. And as I mentioned earlier on, this is the 8th devolution conference taking place at Uasin Gishu County. As we speak, we have live pictures live from Uasin Gishu County. These are images. This is where the event is taking place, or going to take place. And as you can see, we have movement in this particular area. This is in Uasin Gishu County, Eldoret to be specific. Now, the theme of this particular conference, the 10th, about 10 years of devolution, we're talking about the present and the future. That is the theme. We're talking about the present and the future. 10 years of devolution, the present and the future. We are expecting over 15,000 guests to attend. This event is taking place in Eldoret at the Eldoret Sports Club. The president will be expected to come in to grace the occasion as we are launching this particular event. Simon Achola, Kamche Menza, and Nancy Okware, those are our colleagues who are already on the ground. They will be giving us live updates as we proceed with this particular program. These are live pictures in Eldoret. Remember, yesterday, governors and senators also had some devolution football. They played a game, and I believe it is the senators that won. So that is those are live feeds from Eldoret. We shall be heading over there in a bit. 10 years of devolution. How far are we? That is the 8th devolution conference taking place in the country. Let's take a short break and then we'll be back. After this, I want us to handle matters concerning corruption in the country. How has corruption affected devolution? And how far are we? We'll be back in a bit. 10 years of devolution. How far are we? Are you satisfied with where we are at as a country? My name is Aguko. If you've just joined us, this is Good Morning Kenya. We proceed with this conversation. This is The Viewpoint. And as we proceed with this particular discussion, I would like to highlight on our Twitter handle where we've asked a question. Devolution has been around for now 10 years. Is devolution performing as anticipated in your region? Talk to us. Is devolution performing as anticipated in your region? The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya at Aguko, which is my handle, and at KBC Channel 1, which is the official station handle. Just to read a few comments here. This is Ochoki saying River Nile flows away from Lake Victoria. Is that a metaphor? Max is saying, watching live, saying it is working for them. All right. This is Sophie. Sophie saying Tana River County has a big problem with devolution. Development budget absorption is less than 10% despite the area being historically marginalized and needing much development. The government does not know what they can do even to spur economic growth. That is according to Sophie. Keep engaging with us. The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya. We are asking, is devolution working in your region? And we shall give or air your feedback as we continue with this conversation. And still, I'm with my guest here today, Gibson. We are talking about 10 years of devolution. The 8th conference is taking place in Western Gisore County. Are you proud of where we are at as a country 10 years down the line?
I will say I'm proud. I'm a proud Kenyan that we embraced devolution, for starters. But whether I'm proud as to the achievements of this devolution, I think I can say no. And the reason I'm saying no is because there are a lot of positives which we ought to have seen, but we have not seen them for one reason or the other. And I would want to impress what Mheshimiwa Sossion said. I think it's time we do a proper empirical research and audit to determine whether this devolution is really achieving what it was supposed to achieve, or we are just engaging in other side shows. Why I state that I'm a proud Kenyan that we have devolution, perhaps this is the route we could have taken right from independence, which we never took. And we could be somewhere different. For example, we could be in the region of where South Korea is right now. Some of the things which we ought to have put in place, we never put them in place. This is the right time to actually embrace devolution and make it work so that we can change the fortunes of our people. Because our people have suffered for too long. There are some positives. Let me start, let me not be very pessimistic as Mheshimiwa was saying. There are some positives which we have realized through devolution, but though they are not very significant. If we can be able to build on that, we can be able to help our people. I could take an example of a county like Makueni. I would want to believe that under the advent of devolution, the former governor, Kifuta Kibwana Professor, did bring in some aspects of devolution. I think is one of the governors I could want to commend who actually understood what devolution and how it should be able to work. Because he was able to bring down the government down to the people. Because he was able to go to the villages and discuss development agendas for the people. He could be able to discuss macroeconomic issues like talking about negotiating with the European Union to start exporting things to the European Union. And we saw him set up factories. That is the true spirit of devolution. He also came up with the issues to deal with climate change, the first country to start tackling issues of climate change. These are very big positives which we need to embrace. We of course saw people like Mwangi Waida setting up creameries, which even Makueni also did. These are some of the positives which we can be able to embrace and say, if these people really were able to do this, you can talk of the Kakamega with the big hospital they put there, which was not there. And now it's even bigger than the county cannot be able to run there. I want to hand it over to the national government. These are some of the issues which, when we look at them, we say now devolution has gone to the ground. I'm happy about the issues to do with stadium. We can see here, not here, we can see Homa Bay coming up with a stadium which now I'm informed is going to host Shabana Football Club, which is a newly it's a club which has come to the National League. And because the stadium in Kisii is undergoing renovation, they are now opting to play from Homa Bay. Homa Bay could have taken maybe for the longest time to come up with a stadium, but with the Devolution we have seen this come. But that is as far as I can go with the positives. Let me tackle the negatives a bit so that we can be able to discuss. The issue of pending bills, as Mheshimiwa also said, is a big issue. But for the first time, we have seen the government actually clear all the money which is owed to the county. So there is really no need where we should be discussing the issue of pending bills from by the end of this year, by the end of this financial year. We ought to have the governors pay everybody who supplied their counties so that we can be able to move forward. Failure to which government has got to also come up with a clear policy of ensuring that they engage in a carrot and stick. We have given you the money, but you've not spent it, or you have not paid the people you're supposed to pay. We need to see the stick come in, where we see some governors going in, we see some chief financial officers being taken to account to explain where the monies went instead of going to the people who have actually done the work. So those are some of the things which we need to engage. But as a lawyer, I also need to bring in the aspect of governance. Governance has not been handled as it is expected in the counties. There is an aspect of which Mheshimiwa talked about, whether the counties have really taken in the county assemblies, whether there's actually the aspect of checks and balances is actually applicable. It's not. In most of the counties, you find that the governors have sacked up these MCAs and they are taking them for trips when they want something critical to be passed, and then we don't have proper checks and balances. The senators are so weak to a level that they cannot be able to counter-check the governor. Some of them have been summoned and they sometimes refuse. So we cannot be able to afford to have such a lackluster way of dealing with a very key issue like devolution. If we can be able to embrace some of these things, and lastly, if I may be able to come in and say that if we can effectively bring in the issue of the ward fund, that is what will mean difference, a big difference to every Kenyan, because the ward fund will be helping you get the resources which you require at the very grassroots level.
Thank you, Gibson. And I would like to quote the Council of Governors Chairperson, Anne Waiguru, and I'm coming to you, Honorable Wilson Sossion, so that I may be able to release you. She said, and I quote, there is plenty to celebrate in the sector of finance, health, education, urban governance, roads and energy, agriculture, the blue economy, natural resource management, trade and investment, tourism and wildlife. There are so many things that we need to celebrate when it comes to all of this. Even as we talk about the negatives, we need to highlight also the positives, things that we've managed to achieve over the years. Now, it is true that yes, we may have some challenges in regards to development, but still we've had many hits. Honorable Sossion, let me come to you for a minute and then I release you.
I think the time available is for us to address core issues, core challenges. That's why we should take our minds and apply our minds to. Now, the counties will act as units of development for industrialization, because we need to reinvigorate the production sector of the economy. It shall not be done anywhere except under the counties. And we've seen national government has put in this budget 100 million to every county for industrial park, where goods are aggregated and value addition. Now, we expect counties to be units of economic transformation and revolution, with targeted investment and prudency in management of resources, and to turn around the economy. If we're talking about Makueni, a very dry county, able to produce and package milk, able to produce and package fruits, then any county in Kenya can do it. I was seeing a statement yesterday that was quoted in social media on Vladimir Putin, who said Africa is a potential continent that can produce food to feed the entire Europe, to feed the entire North America, to feed the entire Asia. But the problem, with Africa is leadership. So that leadership is everywhere, up to the counties.
All right.
So the thing is, we must strengthen the capacity of leadership at that level, and by ensuring that there are strong institutions of to check. And then, very lastly, this thing called corruption, we should not think about it through and through. And it's good we have lawyers here. It is time we criminalize corruption seriously in this country.
All right.
And, and impose very severe penal measures against any proven corruption.
Right.
If corruption is not punished, people will still run away with it. Even pastors will run away with corruption. And we will be here again in the next 10 years talking about devolution after 20 years when we have allowed certain vices to prevail and persist. We have seen conflicts. We've seen conflicts between governors and their deputies. It's a new frontier, and it's a very strange thing. It's all about resources. Sometimes we see it's about a chair that is procured at the cost of 2 million. I want to see that chair that costs 2 million.
Thank you, Honorable Sossion, for
so
that.
I think there's a lot to be done, and we have no time to talk about the goods. The goods are there. There have been
we will talk about them.
Have been highlighted, but I think we will talk about focus on the threats.
Thank you so much.
What are the threats to devolution?
Thank you so much for that. But I'm still with my guests. I've released Honorable Sossion, but I'm with my guests here, Gilbert Gisore and Chris Owalla, joining us today. Now, as we bring this conversation to a different level, devolution has had its own challenges. Let me bring in corruption. How has corruption played a role in this? And is it possible for devolution to still succeed regardless of the level of corruption that we are at as a country? Chris.
Thank you, Ram. I want just to, before we get to the corruption, looking at I reiterate what has been shared by my friend here, Gibson, that devolution is the best thing that ever happened to this nation. And we realize that the way the resources are being distributed is on political angle. And it's where people are saying you must be a shareholder to have your shares. I think devolution has cushioned that. And I think one of the objectives of devolution is to promote equity and also to make sure that inclusivity areas that were marginalized are come up. And I think that's the best thing that ever happened to this nation. But all said and done, we need to look at what are the threats to devolution. The threats to devolution is not only corruption. The biggest threat to devolution, one, is the lack of effective public participation. If people don't participate well in their destiny, in determining their self-governance, then devolution might not succeed the way it's supposed to succeed. Two, if we have weak oversight institutions, then devolution might not deliver to Kenyans the way it's supposed to deliver. Three, if you have independent organizations, entities like CRA, which are supposed to guide on the sources of to the counties, their work still remain at recommending, then devolution is going to be threatened. Four, if we don't have a goodwill from national government to county government to effectively transfer resources, adequate resources, because you realize that even this money we are talking about, they are saying county has received money. It's not their fair share. Remember, we need to use the last audited account. Remember, in this country, audits are delayed deliberately so that the county don't get their fair share. So I think we also need to relook at that. Again, one of the challenges that we are facing with devolution that need to be strengthened, our assemblies have stopped doing their role. We need to come back and say, what is the role of the assemblies? What are they supposed to do? But for now, assemblies are used just as an institution I don't think they are doing what they're supposed to do. And overall, if you look at, there's a component here, budget making process. We don't align our budget, our resources to our budget documents. And this now brings another killer sword, which is in devolution, the so-called supplementary budget. Supplementary budget is supposed to be a tool for implementing budget, not the main budget. And that we realize people go out, present their issues in the budget, present their concerns, but after the budget has been passed, the county start the process of supplementary. To the extent that he's a wakili, he tell you that the budget loses the character. If the budget loses the character, you are supposed to go back to public again to get their consent, because what they intended to achieve are deviated. If you have a red uniform, you are supposed to wear, and at the end of it you have black, you have yellow, patched into it, it's no longer red. So how do we work with the national government and other institutions to make sure that we protect the devolution by making sure also that the supplementary budget is not abused? But as things stand today, supplementary budget is abused. A lot of citizens are disconnected with their government. But also very important, as I conclude this, is that as we engage in all this engagement, what is the work of ethics and corruption? What is the work of a DCI? And that's what brings us to the point, your question you're asking, the role of corruption. I work on issues of asset recovery. I can tell you there are a lot of buildings that have been, people still here and build here, people still in Kisii and build in Kisumu, people still in Migori build in Kisii, and these resources are denying what they are stealing and investing for their own growth is denying people services like healthcare. And if you look at, again, in some countries where you realize that assembly passes their budget, the executive passes their budget, but it's the executive that finance assembly in their tours.
I would like us to take a break on that particular note, a short commercial break, and then we'll be back in a bit. What are some of the challenges concerning that affect devolution? This is still Good Morning Kenya. Let's take a short break. We'll be back in a bit. All right, we now want to wrap it up in a few. Now, let's just finish this conversation about devolution, particularly now. It has been there for now 10 years. What are the challenges that we have faced as a country right here? When you talk about 10 years of devolution, how far have we come? Today we are having the 8th devolution conference taking place in Eldoret, in Uasin Gishu County. We shall be heading over there a bit later on during the day as we proceed with this conversation. But now let's bring it to you, Gibson. Before we took that break, Chris had highlighted a few of the challenges that we are facing as a country, things that make devolution to be problematic. Do you agree with the highlights that he has given? And what's your take in regards to the challenges that we are facing as a country in achieving devolution?
Thank you, Ram, again. Chris has really put in the spanner in the works, and what he has said is actually true. We have some issues of leadership. We have some issues to deal with governance, and I highlighted this earlier, where I said that some of these things really go to the core of devolution. Devolution is a very beautiful thing. It's a very beautiful baby.
Yes.
Let's just not mismanage this baby, because we need to safeguard it and shepherd it to a level that it grows to be what it is that we want it to be. Some of the issues which I think are very even critical, even at the African Union level, somebody while they were on, somebody did mention about the Maputo Declaration, which talks about 10%, which is supposed to go into issues of agriculture. So if we can be able to inculcate, and you know Kenya is a signatory, if we can be able to implement that, because agriculture is a dual function now, if we can be able to ensure that these funds actually go to agriculture in the counties, and to ensure that the counties actually do it. Counties are running as devolved units, which are making their own decisions, which are not in line or in tandem with the government philosophy. That is, I think, where we miss it. If we could be able to, if I may suggest, be having something like a leadership training institute for governors. Immediately they take over power, we take them through training so that they understand government policy and agenda. Some of these people come from private sector, some of them are businessmen, some of them are half-schooled, some of them are very corrupt to the core. So they start continue implementing their own agendas, which are not necessarily in tandem or with what is supposed to be done. Some of them do not understand devolution. Because if we have to move from where we are to the next level, the way China has done, the way South Korea has done, we need to have a proper training institution which instills issues of governance, issues of leadership, issues of public policy to these governors so that they can understand what is the philosophy of government, what is the philosophy of devolution, what is it which is expected out of them. Once we have done this, and then we'll be able to devolve these monies which they need to implement the same. And then we'll be able to have proper checks and balances. We have cried here or talked about the issue of county assemblies not being accountable. Being very weak to check the governor. Being the executive in the counties is funding all the trips for the MCAs. So if somebody is, you will only play to the side of where your bread is buttered. So we need to separate these two things. The senators do not have an oversight fund to actually oversight the governors. When they summon a governor, he feels larger than life. He hardly comes or takes his time to come. When he comes, he answers what he feels he should be able to answer. Some of these reports should be able to be cascaded and taken to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which should be able to investigate and properly be able to harass some of the fellas who have pilfered government funds. Let me also bring in the issue of the Abuja declaration about health, which is also another devolved function. These are declarations at the African Union front. These are some of the things we should be able to be looking at, ensuring that devolution actually works in terms of health. Okay. We are going to commend some of the counties which have come up with the infrastructures, but infrastructure in terms of health is not everything. We need the soft services of actually providing the medical services in terms of employment, human resources, and the medicines being available. If we can be able to manage some of these things, we can be able to achieve the two critical areas of agriculture and of course health. If we be able to tackle these issues, we can be able to come to salvage whatever is left of devolution. All right. Let me highlight also something very small that for devolution to actually work, yes, some of the countries in Africa, in the African front, let me stick to the African front, they embraced either federalism or aspects of devolution which we are embracing. The best country to pick from much as I know the best in Africa, Nigeria, which is now the largest economy, embraced this long time ago when it went the state's way. Right. And devolution has been. South Africa has also done the same, and some of the provinces, especially in South Africa, have a bigger economy than the country Kenya.
All right. Chris? Okay. Thanks a lot, Ram. I think we need to protect devolution at all costs. Remember, not everybody that is in devolution wanted devolution. If you look at the history of devolution, and you look at, I want to share with Gibson here that at independence we had something akin to devolution. And remember, we got in the independence with what we call the KADU constitution, but KANU that got in the power. The Majimbo was something akin to devolution, but it was killed. If you look at 2010, when we got in this devolution, the people who wanted devolution never got into the office. The people who didn't want devolution got into the office. So devolution has been under threat ever since. And that's why we are saying at all times we need to protect devolution. That's why we need to fight corruption. But more importantly, it's the role of national government to capacity build counties. They should not run away from that. Two, the golden rule to make sure that devolution work. One, we need to proper costing of devolved function. We need to transfer resources at the right time to the counties. Three, we need to make sure that that resource, the way it transferred, if it's for a particular function, it must be ring-fenced for that function. Then ethics and corruption and other agencies must also do their role. And last but not least, citizens should be at the center of the service delivery.
All right.
Thank you
so much. Wow, gentlemen. Whoa, that has been a hot one. Thank you so much for coming. And I believe it is on that note that we bring this conversation to a close right here on Good Morning Kenya. As you can see on your screen, we are proud Kenyans because we celebrate 10 years of devolution. Those are live images coming in from Eldoret Sports Club in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County, where we're having the 8th Devolution Conference taking place. The president is expected to officially open it, and we expect to have over 15,000 guests coming your way. Our colleagues are also on the ground. We shall be linking up with them as we proceed with the day. Simon Achola, Kamche Menza, Nancy Okware are on the ground. Remember, this live production could not be successful without the producers, Maurice and Joanne Muikali. My name is Ram Aguko. It has been a pleasure being part of your morning. Thank you so much for choosing KBC Channel 1. 10 years of devolution. May God bless Kenya. Have a fantastic day.